Yeah, we're live. I'm late. It's 7:44. Lots to do. Why is he wearing this? So I want to show you some of the gear that I wore when we were out hunting snakes in Florida the last couple of days. And this is actually something that I bought. I'm not sure who makes it, but it's something that I bought off of eBay because I was looking for some kind of headlamp, and this one had like all kinds of I don't know, semi cool features or whatever. But it's something I recommend now that I've gone out and used it. And actually, I used this more than and liked it more than my go-to thing has always been my Harbor Freight Spotlight, which is rechargeable and has always worked fantastic. I'm sure I've had it for 10 years now at least. And it's always been my go-to thing. And then after I compared it to this, now I don't know if my light is now getting old and tired. It's got a lot of miles on it. But this, I'll show you. Yeah, that's how that's how bright it is. But it has that, and then it has. Let's see if I can show you. See if it'll show you. Yeah, there we go. So it has 1 or 2 or 3, and then it has the dance party. This is what called all the snakes. Has dance party feature. I think we use that as the hey, I'm over here. Let's see, you can see spotlight. And the cool thing about the spotlight is it's adjustable too. So it widens out and narrows the beam to a spot. So 2, 3, dance party. So we use the dance party as a signal to basically tell people, because when you're out there and when everybody turned all of their lights off, it's really, really dark out there in the swamp, out there in the wilderness. So when we have that on, it's like, hey, dude, come over here. There's something cool over here, or something's chewing on my leg or whatever. Or that we were summoning the pythons over for the dance party, which is also cool. But they didn't seem to respond to that like the way that we wanted them to. But it was very, very cool. But tonight we're talking about the photo that I have up is an air to water intercooler, and then the reservoir for the intercooler and a pump and circulation pump and stuff. And all of this is for my buddy Jimmy's NSX that he has a 3.5 liter J series Honda V6 swapped into with a turbo, and it's been built up. It's got forged rods and pistons and stuff on it. It's got, I think it has stuff done to the block and ported heads, and I think it might have some kind of cams in it, and it's actually pretty stout. We think it's near the way that it's running now with 20 or 21 pounds of boost. We think it's near 800 at the tire. So it's actually, quite honestly, probably near the limit of the turbo that we have on it. We have I think it's a Precision that I use. It's like a 67 millimeter Precision, I think, if I remember right. I've had it for a really, really long time. We set some land speed records with it with a 2.5 liter Suzuki Kazashi. We use that turbo. I've run it on NSXs or LSs. I've run it on lots of stuff. I think we ran it on the K series Honda that I did, and now it's on this NSX, and it works really, really well. And it's responsive in this thing. And this thing pulled hard. This thing pulled like a freight train. So it was pretty impressive. But the discussion, when we have discussions about air to water intercoolers, are always, hey, look, that doesn't work because you get heat soak and all of these things. But in reality, that doesn't happen. I know, because I've had several air to water intercooled street cars that I've driven around at and actually monitored and even data log temperature on them. And it doesn't work the way that people think. Because the way that they think, the way that they envision it is that people are driving around under boost all the time with lots and lots of like charge temperature going through this. And you're just going to heat up all the available water. Yes, that would be the case if you had really hot charge air going all the time, and you're constantly heating the water. But you're not. For the most time, for a street car, most of the time you're just driving around. You're driving around out of boost. And even if you go momentarily into boost, you're not putting a lot of heat into the water. And the water is circulated and goes through, usually the way that I had mine set up, is some sort of secondary heat exchanger. And then that's cooled by ambient air. So you get the water down fairly cold. Now, the thing that happens is, and this is not unusual, we see this with a lot of factory air-to-water intercooled cars, blower cars that have an air-to-water intercooler brick located under the supercharger, and then they have some sort of reservoir And here's what guys do. And I don't know if they're doing it because it looks cool, because it's not a good idea. But they're taking a factory reservoir, which normally is plastic or composite or something in the engine compartment, which, it's subjective to engine heat. So if you're driving around, there's a lot of engine heat under the hood. That water will heat up, not because you're running boost through it, but because it has really hot ambient air around it all the time as you're running in a hot ambient air bath, as it were. But then what they do is, well, I'm going to make a larger reservoir. Perfect. But they make the larger reservoir sometimes out of aluminum. And that's a terrible idea. And the reason that that's a terrible idea, it's a good idea in the sense that they've made it larger so it has more cooling capacity. It has more thermal mass. That's good. That it can actually be good. The reason that it's bad is, and especially if it's under the hood and being subjective to lots of engine heat, is that aluminum is a really good transfer. And it transfers heat very well. It has very good transfer properties. And so it's going to transfer the engine heat to the water even better. And so what you have have happened is that it puts more heat into the water. And so that's why it's not a good idea. I remember doing that. I remember having that discussion on one of our Bonneville cars. I'm like, well, we're going to weld up this aluminum tank and we're going to put ice water in it. I'm like, that's fantastic. One, it's going to look awesome because it's going to be polished aluminum, and it's going to have, like its all billety goodness. It's going to have, it's aluminum, it's welded, it's polished, it looks great, and it's going to look race car-y. Problem is that when you have an aluminum tank and you put ice water in it, the ice water is very cold. But what is everything else that's around this reservoir? It's all hot race car. Even if it's not hot like the engine compartment is, inside, especially at Bonneville, where it can be 90 or 100 degrees during the day, all of that stuff is basically going to just draw all the coldness out of the ice water and just put it out into the atmosphere. So what's going to happen is your ice water doesn't last nearly as long. If you put it in there and make a run, at Bonneville, that's not a big deal. But if you're asking the ice to last, it doesn't really last nearly as well, because you're not putting all of that temperature, not putting all the cold into the motor and where it's going to be beneficial. You're putting some of that just out into the world, which is, that's good too. That's why when we did them for Bonneville, like when we did the Civic, I used, and this was originally not out of design, but out of necessity, because we had a 10-gallon fuel cell that fit perfectly into where we wanted to put it. It was basically the spare tire wheel, and it worked perfect. Also, it's plastic. So we obviously didn't have any of the foam in it, and we cleaned it all out of the fuel and everything, but it worked as a perfect container for the ice water for our air-to-water intercooler. Because the nice thing about the plastic is it doesn't want to transfer the coldness or transfer the heat into the cold or the cold out to the heat. It doesn't want to do that. It's a really good insulator. It has really good insulation properties. And so all the cold stays in the cold. And that worked out very well, so much so that we could fill it full of ice. And what we would do is put mostly ice in. I mean, we'd fill it all the way with ice, as much ice as you could pack in there. Then we would put water in there, and we put enough water in there so that the pumps would circulate the water. And once the system had filled up, there was still some excess water in the tank. And then we would have it circulate and turn it on and circulate right before we started our run. And we would turn it on, and we built a sprinkler system, basically tubes with a whole bunch of holes in them, something fairly simple, but it allowed all the hot water not just to stream out, because this is what we originally did. It had all the hot water and allowed it just to stream out as a big stream into one localized spot, basically melting all the ice in its path. But we eventually designed a multi-road system where we fed all of these tubes that had holes in them, and they just sprinkled the motor over the whole thing, over all of the inside of this 10-gallon cell, which was all full of ice. So it wasn't just, superheating one spot and then getting that immediately down to the water where we would then draw it in again. It slowly chilled as it went through in the sprinkler variation all the way through the ice, and then the water all stayed cool. And so the nice thing was that we had so much excess ice when we would run this thing is we still have lots of ice left at the end of the run. We would make a pass. The charge temperatures would be ultra low, lower than ambient, even at our 15 to 17 pounds that we would eventually run. And the ice water, the temperatures were 55 or 60 degrees in the motor, which was very, very nice. But we would still have lots of ice left. I mean, we would have to go to the store to get the ice, and then we could fill our coolers up. But the number of coolers that we had didn't allow the amount of ice that we needed to fill the thing back up. So it was important that we have ice left over, and we did on every run. So it worked out very well, and that was a much better system, much better than having it be aluminum. And even though it didn't look nearly as fancy, but it was much better for keeping this stuff working. And this intercooler that Jimmy has on the NSX works very well. And really what I wanted to talk about tonight is we want to talk about sizing the intercooler, because a lot of guys get worried about a couple things. One is that they think that if the tubing is too big or the intercooler is too big, that I'm going to lose response, and that's not going to happen. I mean, you could make it gigantic and it would be a problem. But my recommendation is, and one of the things I like to recommend to people when they ask about intercooler sizing and stuff is don't size your intercooler for the power level that you're going to have right now. Because here's the thing about turbos is you're going to, we say that we're going to run 7 pounds or 10 pounds, but you're going to max that turbo out. And not only are you going to max whatever that turbo is, more than likely, and this is especially the case if you take it to the track, you're going to go up in turbo. You're going to go, yeah, I've got a GT45 on there on my 4.8 and it runs really good. And it makes, 650 at the tire or whatever. That's really good. Be better than that, like 750 or 850 at the tire. So I'm going to put a 7875 or an S475 on there. And then when you upgrade the turbo, if you already stepped up and made your intercooler and sized your intercooler so that it had the flow rate and heat rejection necessary to, still work at these higher boost and power levels, then you're all set. All you have to do is change the turbo. Otherwise, you got to change all of them. Well, I got to do a new turbo. I don't want to put that on there because then I also have to do an intercooler. Well, if you already took care of that, which is what Jimmy did, like I said, right now the thing might be making 750 or 800 at the tire, but this is easily 1,000 horsepower intercooler because I know that I've made more than that. So we know that intercooler has it's really good at reducing heat, and we've seen that and done lots of testing with that. And also the flow rate through the core, there's not a lot of pressure drop. So that's pretty good temperature control and not a lot of pressure drop. So it flows fairly well, especially at this power level, and it works very well. I like that core, and I've used it on a lot of stuff that's near 1,000 horsepower. That's that, or even a little bit more than that, depending on what pressure ratio we're running on it and stuff. The thing that I would change on some of these things, and just like the thing that I would change on the dual intercooler that I use on the Big Bang stuff has 2 of these cores. So those are the ones that we've done that are 1550 or 1540 that make that much power. And 2 of those cores work very well. The thing that I would change on that dual core setup and on the single core setup is I would just want to increase the flow rate of the water through this core. I think that the boost going through that's all fine. That all works out pretty good. The in and out are size okay. They're 3.5 inches. You can also get a 3-inch version if you want to use that. But the 3.5-inch version works very well, and you can make a lot of power with it. But what I'd like to see are bigger inlets and outlets for the water. And also I'd like to see them be single passes. On mine and on the cores that I've gotten that are like this, the water goes in and then turns against the back. It has a plenum back there, turns against that back wall and then comes back. So no matter how you do it, no matter which direction you flow it in, when it comes in contact with the hot boost air, it heats up and then it comes back over to the other side and then gets heated up again. So if you just had single passes on both sides, like an in and out, the boost would only come in contact with cold water ever, and that's better. Then you'd have more cooling that way. So I'd like to see that. That would be one change that I would make. But the core works very well, and Jimmy has a reasonably sized pump on it, and for a quick run, and this thing's running on E85 also, so it has that added benefit. I can't wait to see this thing actually run at the track and see what kind of, we're guesstimating this thing should run 100 and I don't know, in the 140s, in the low to mid 140s for mile an hour, we think, something like that. So it should be pretty cool. So I'm going to have a poll here. Okay, have you ever run a factory or non-factory boosted motor with an air-to-water intercooler? Where are my air-to-water intercooler peoples? Where are my peeps? Okay, we're going to go back. Wisconsin's in the house. I do like Wisconsin. I like Elkhart Lake. That's probably my favorite track. Well, at work area helps a lot. That's true. Been waiting to join for weeks, but I never have time. I've always watched the live feeds and all the videos. I'm a 408, 85 Crown Vic guy. Nice. Glad to hear you had fun in Florida. It was awesome. It was very, very cool. I like going new places and meeting new people and doing fun stuff. And that was definitely, like for me, going out, I could sit and hang out the window of a vehicle driving down the road looking for snakes just like all night and did exactly that. Dallas, Texas, what's going on? Like the style was kind of heavy. My battery is fantastic. The ones with the cob light across the band and the little light side are great. I have a bunch with one always on the charger. Yeah. The thing that I forgot to say that about this, let's see, who makes this? Danforce, is that the name of it? Danforce. The thing that I like about it is rechargeable, but this battery pack lasted the whole night for us. So some of the other ones that we got, like we got some Harbor Freight spotlights, and they were really good. They really illuminated because we got some different ones. They don't sell the one that I have. At least they didn't in the Harbor Freights that we went to when we were in Florida. They didn't sell the one that I had. They had other ones which were every bit and even possibly more powerful. They just didn't last as long. Mine charged, 110 and charges fairly quickly, and it seemed to work fairly well. But this, I charged it up, and it's a USB, and it lasted all night. So I thought, with as intense as that spotlight is, because I said it's really good. And I like that it's adjustable, and then I like you can have the dual on there. So when I'm just walking around looking at stuff, that's the way that I have it. So I'm just walking down the road, looking at stuff. We're walking through the swamp and looking at it. I get a broad view of things. And then if I really want to see, then I can go in the spot and I can make the spot, you could pencil beam it or widen it out, which is what I did mostly to see stuff. And then I also use that when we're driving down the road and hanging out the window. I just put it on my head and turn the spot on so that it had the right width to cover the exact grass area that I wanted to look at. So covered the whole thing, and we're just driving down the road. It was nice. And like I said, I love that the thing lasted as well as it did, given how bright everything was. Amos just did some porting on 8.1 heads tonight. I want to try a set of ported either 8.1 or 8.8 heads. That's the next thing for the 8.1. Ported heads, and then I'm going to rerun your manifold with a right-sized throttle body, and then it's going to get boost. One of the 8.1 guys has a tutorial on 8.1. It's pretty easy to get 315. Nice. If I remember correctly, the Pikes Peak NSX first gen had a Turbo J series. It seems like the engine was very versatile. I think it was also in a few LMPs and IMSA. Really? They used that instead of the NSX motor? Rex, what's up? Puppet Master's in the house. Glad you're back. Love the live feeds. I know, like I got to get back and talk to my peeps. Is the J better than the C? I don't think so. But the thing that makes it a viable option is that one, it's a lot less expensive than the C because the C is hard to find. It's also bigger. You know, you can get a 3.2 or a 3.5, and a 3.2 C probably is even more than a 3.0. And like I said, the price difference between them is going to be dramatic. And then you can make a ton of power with these things. In fact, Jimmy and I were talking about having him come out maybe with an AEM so that we can run one on the dyno and do a bunch of testing on it. Because I finally got to look at one in detail. I got to look at the inside of the intake and stuff. And there's some, cool things that we think we can do. Richard, assuming the specs properly, would a long runner intake with a big cam make the same power curve as a short runner with a more mild cam? I don't think so. I don't think you could get that to happen. I race motorcycles at Road Atlanta. My hat's off to you. That would be very, very fast in a motorcycle. Got lots of straightaway there in under Championship Cup Series. That straight was a blast on 2009 GSX or 750. I'll bet. The thing that I liked about Road Atlanta, I ran there we didn't run there in Bridgestone. I ran there in World Challenge, but I ran there in US Touring, which I ran my Del Sol in. We won the championship, and it was the only racetrack where the straightaway was long enough for me to get into fifth gear in my car. Everything else was fourth was tops in the Del Sol. I meant 350 CFM. Yeah, that's what I figured, Amos. What does that thing flow to begin with? I can't even remember now. Super Legacy GT with an air to water to get that FMIC charge cooling without the 10 feet of pipe circling the engine, causing the MAF reading to do rich dip tip-in issues. Okay. LS3 with stage 3 TSP cam package and tune. Will the tune be okay for running 13-1 417 with 104 octane, bigger cam, throttle body injectors, ported heads, and bigger fuel pump? It's not going to be right. I mean, it might be close. I'd have to see if the 417 is going to want more power. So I don't know if is that a math car? If it is, it could be closer than I think. If it's not, then it's not going to be the same. It's going to be wildly different. I see it has a big pack on it now. The positive on my adjustable one like that is a replaceable 2650 or something like that. The other thing that I wanted to do is, and I will do this before I go back. I definitely will go back because I think it's cool. But we want to get spotlights that just have rechargeable, just like a Makita or Milwaukee or any of those. I think they didn't have those when we went and looked, but I'm sure I could get them online because we have 18 volt stuff. And so some of them are kind of big and clunky, but at least you could have, different battery packs just kind of ready to go. The nice thing is my Harbor Freight one lasted the whole night. And so did this one. It lasted the whole night. I'm pretty stingy with my spotlighting. I use it when it's necessary, but that thing I just had on, like we'd be driving for, miles and miles and miles trying to find stuff. Did you get any snakes? Yeah, we found lots of them. I actually was able to catch one python and then lots of other kinds of snakes. Rat snake, garter snakes, a eastern diamondback, water moccasins we saw, racers. Another one that I need to look up now, a little striped one. We had garter snakes, but this wasn't that. So this was something that's only in Florida that I don't normally see. But lots of cool stuff. Water snakes. Have you bored a block for a large cam? Is it more for valve stability or just lift capacity? How hard is it to do? I don't know what you mean by bored a block for a large cam. Like you're boring the cam tunnel. Yeah, Road America is very cool. About time for a K24 Big Bang. I agree. Like the old Riverside track, I geared the car for 220. That's really fast, and whatever that is. Acura used the J35s in DPI cars until last year. IMSA racing motors were badged as HR28 and HR35, and they kept a fair amount of stock components at the block too, supposedly. Cool. Can't remember off the top of my head, but an 8.1 flow less than 300, 290. Okay. The bad rear main leak, an LS leak when the engine is not running. Not unless it was unless the opening would have to be below the oil level. You're going to put a vacuum pump, I would assume that is, on the 5.3 and try to hit your power goal. I don't know how much a vacuum pump is going to help. We don't have a very good ring pack on there. An AccuFab throttle body, I don't know that that's going to do anything. I think we have enough throttle body on it. No more flow after 500 lifts is a runner restriction. That's pretty easy to get flow over 600 lifts. It really picks up on the high lift with ported heads. Cool. What would be ideal injectors on fuel pump for my 4.8 liter? You need to size the injectors for whatever power output you want. What power level are you going to run your turbo kit to? Maybe 800. If you're doing 800 on gas, then 80-pound injectors would be fine. And those are Decas that everybody uses. Those are pretty common. If you're going to try to do E85, then you need something bigger than that. How's our poll doing? And no, not very many have run air-to-water intercoolers. Only 17%. A vacuum pump would be one of the things that we could try. We have a couple of guys that come into West Tech that run a lot of semi-dry sump stuff, and I might try that. I was thinking of like a pan with a kick out on it might help. Maybe a better windage tray. I don't know if like a shaft rocker setup. 93. Yeah, 93 is fine. Then you've got enough fuel. A crank scraper might be beneficial. Yeah, kickouts and scrapers definitely help. Might be able to do scrapers off of the factory windage tray. And then it would be easy to weld or rivet and position them. JE, my truck is small potatoes. What these people do, 81 C10, 145, 190 stock. So is it 145 horsepower and 190 torque on it? What motor is it? I took your advice, did a dual plane intake, carb, I'm sure that is, long tube headers, and single 3-inch exhaust. That should work good. Titanium intake valves, I don't know if we're there yet. I was going to talk to Brian about maybe some cut down LS3 valves, if they'll go that small. Look it up. Yeah, that should have made a difference. Those modifications on it. Nicholas, you want to know if we can run EV6 injectors? So you just the EV6 part is just the plug, right? You just want to be able to plug your harness into it. We run Deca-80s on truck fuel rails all the time. You just have to space it up, and it works. You might have to change the O-rings to get it to work, depending on which ones you have. But we do that all the time. I space them up. Just get the scraper close, then start it up and let it run until it quiets down. And then just change the oil after that. 305 5-liter. Okay, yeah, that's good. The LS7s did have titanium valves. Yep. Yeah, see, I would just use the hollow stem LS3 stuff. Also should mention I plan on using E85 on the truck and EV6 injectors. As long as you have the right enough injector flow for that kind of fuel, you should be okay. Special agent. Secret agent man. Busy making stuff happen. Just make it happen mode. When I was getting on the shuttle going from my parking to when I was leaving to go to Florida, I parked my truck and got on the shuttle to go over to the airport. And I was sitting across from a guy who had a gun case. I'm like, so I'm just curious, is that a Barrett Light 50? He goes, oh, dude, I wish. He goes, no, it's a I think it was a Remington. It was a shotgun and 12 gauge, and he was going bird hunting. He said, that would be cool, wouldn't it? I said, yeah, it would be really cool. Didn't LS9s have titanium rods? I always wondered why they weren't more used. Did the LS9 have that or just the LS7? Burns is in the house. %. Oh, we're up to 20 now. So we've jumped way up from 17 all the way up to 20. LS9 rods were titanium, but a different length. Okay. I don't really hang out in LS9 circles. They don't allow me to do that because I'm basic. 5990. Oh, okay. The are tested sodium filled against Inconel. No, but what would the test be? The only thing I think you'd want to test them is for valve float or or longevity. Dan, I don't know who did the tie rods for GM. That's right. You're basic. If you saw my Instagram post, you know what I'm talking about. No meat lift. He had a bird with a 50. Yeah, that's true. Because I can't remember if he was. I think he was hunting. He was either quail or dove. Yeah, they are good with heat. So the sodiums would be lighter, but I think an Inconel, if you're going to have a turbo combination and be laying into it for extended periods. I'm sure GM would want to go to somebody that knows what they're doing. And the Pankel guys definitely know that. So we got to see lots of Lamborghinis and other exotics when I was in Miami. Somebody had a dealership that they were doing, I don't know, ride-alongs or something. And there's a bunch of people out there waving and filming and stuff. And then they were doing, blasts up and down whatever that main road that we were on. Because we're like, man, there's a Lamborghini. There's another one. Look, that's a turbo Porsche. And then there's all these cars. And we're like, That seems like a lot of them just all in one area. And then we came up to the dealership and everybody's there hooting and hollering and stuff. And there's a ton of exotic cars, some very, very cool ones. I think they did the late gen NSXs because an NSX had tie valves too, or titanium rods too. Yeah, I know. What for turbo? Yeah, a bunch of different ones too. It was pretty cool. So somebody wants to know if titanium rods last a long time. My NSX they lasted a really long time, but I think that don't they tend to be brittle? I don't know about the racing environment, and I'm sure that GM would not have put them in there and had a warranty with them if they weren't sure that they were going to last. Titanium rods don't last forever. Okay. Only Honda ones longer than aluminum. Yeah. I know that people do it. I know they run them, but I guess they figured in the LS7s that the valve seats or the valves or the guides or whatever were going to go out before the rods did, so it wasn't going to be a problem. Yeah, that's right. I'm throwing shade at the LS7 guys. They knew the LS9 guys were just going to be changing the bullies and turning the boost up. Uh-oh, they get oblong. That's not good. That's not what you want in your connecting rod. Are they getting oblong on the big end? Still 80-20 on our boosted stuff. 50% more than aluminum, so cost and benefit, light and strong though. Yep. Yeah, they're money, that's for sure. But we can say when you have titanium connecting rods, you can say, look, the titanium for my connecting rods came from either a MiG or an SR71. Valve guide machining issue with the supplier for the LS7s. Okay. Again, goes oblong. That's not good. Need to replace the bolts and resize them. After you do that, are they good for another go around? The titanium rods, like the factory titanium rods, they're not a cracked rod, right? They're not like the powdered metal stuff, right? A fractured rod. Double A Ron, what's up? Got to X-ray them, okay. Put on my X-ray specs. Just collect 20 iPhone 15s and melt them down. Bam, 3 to 4 rods. So what's the going price on 20 iPhone 15s? Nicholas, 80s are not going to be enough for 800 wheel horsepower. I don't think. If you're getting near 1,000 horsepower flywheel at 800 wheel horsepower, and on the 85, it's just not going to get there. You need bigger injectors. Powering my next project with a Honda J series. Anything to know and watch out for? I don't think so. Just the normal stuff. I would put ring gap in it. Are you going to do more with the Barra? Yeah, there's talk about that. Yeah, meltdown SR71. I'm sure they'd let you do that, right? Come on, dude. That's just scrap at this point. We were talking about planes on our trip because I got to see my buddy Bernie, and he's the guy that I'd gone out to watch the Reno air race with this last time, and the SR71's high on our list. There are different J heads that flow differently. Yep. Booze, you're getting dirt bikes ready? What kind of dirt bikes are they? The NSX had the ring up set at sea level. Exactly. JE, thank you very much. What are you doing, man? My keyboard's not cooperating. Yeah, it is pretty sad what happened at the races. I wasn't there when that happened. I was only there for one day. Did you help build the J35 in your buddy's NSX? Which one did he use? I'll ask him and find out. I actually had nothing to do with it other than telling him he should. I didn't tell him anything. He just said, "Yeah, yes, forged rods and forged pistons are a good idea. Yes, ported heads. Yes, camshaft. Yes, here you run this turbo." And he did it all. He does all the tuning. He installed everything. Did all the welding and piping and stuff. YZ 250, YZ 450, and an old WR 250. Oh, the Athena big bore kit. Nice. I saw an SR 71 at Reno way back when Pilot radioed reporting over Butte, Montana. Nice. ETA 17 minutes. Yeah, they're pretty sporty. And even now, I mean, this when was this done? In the 50s? When was this designed? When did Kelly do this? It looks modern now. Let's celebrate the first super on a live stream. I'm happy to help. JE, what's up? I'm going to scroll back and see what. In the house. Does Deca offer any other injectors larger than 80s? I haven't seen any. The ones that I have, I've got some 1500s that are snake eaters, and I've had good luck with them, and I flowed them before I did anything with them, and they were pretty even. They weren't exact, but they were pretty even, and we see some variances in production stuff anyway, but they were good enough for me to use. But there are others. You can get some 1000 cc's or 1200s. I think Holly has some 120s and some 150s. Bosch makes some, Dan saying Bosch makes some factory 980s. Some of the later J35s have direct injection. Did they introduce that in the J35? It wasn't the 37? It's a design feature so they work at operating temperature. Yeah, they have to have expansion because the thing goes super fast and it gets super hot. I think that they did. I think that Snake Eater went to Bosch injectors. I think I remember reading something about. The J37 was regular port injection. Okay. Dual 450s for pumps. Yep, that would be good. A reflow. That's a nice way. Oh, they're in attack mode. That means mom's home. Yeah, we've run that power level with stock rails. Injectors are not flat plane saying injectors are something I don't mess around with on that Subaru. When I went from side feeds to top feeds, ID 1050s, the idle cleaned up and AGTs balanced out. That's good. Injectors are important. Wastegates are important. Hey, it's okay. She's okay. She's with us. Michael, you want to know what the vacuum difference would be between a 274 cam and a 264 cam? Probably changing less than 2 inches. Probably 1.5 inches. Is having pumps and tank a big problem when it comes to heating up the fuel? No, actually having the pump submerged in fuel cools the pump off. JE, I don't use the CFM or the displacement for calculating carb flow or the required carb. I use power, and so I use power, and then all of the data that I have for carburetors that we've used on there that we're able to supply that amount of airflow and fuel and power. We know that, where we run a 650, and then we know where we run a 750 and an 850 and a 950. Normally, if we have some kind of, powerful small block or LS that's carbureted, we put a 950 on it, because the 950 and now, especially with the Edelbrock one, that works really, really well. But you're not going to hurt power with a 950. It's going to do everything that you want it to do. It's not going to make more power with a smaller carburetor. I've never seen that happen. The one thing that does happen is if we put too big of a carburetor on there, and it makes some you do that so it makes some big number on the dyno, but that's not necessarily the carburetor I'd run on the street. Like in a lot of cases for 302s, I would choose a 650 over a 750 on the street, because it would be more responsive. Even if I gave up 6 or 8 horsepower at the very top because of airflow, I would still get all the other stuff down low. I just think it's a better combination. So what works on the dyno for a wide open throttle pull for maximum power would not always be what I would recommend a guy put in and drive around on. Especially if it's a drag race car, then put the bigger carburetor on. If it's a street car, then I normally recommend going down one step. Richard, ever used Evil Energy Fuel 390 out of a tank fuel pump? I got 2 for my Cavalier build. Was wondering if they're any good. I don't even know what that is. Is it some kind of fuel? Out of tank fuel. Oh, fuel pumps. Okay. I've never tried those pumps. All-wheel drive pickup, do you need proper weight distribution for traction? Yeah, if you can balance out the weight on the wheels, then you can distribute power to those wheels and get the most amount of acceleration because you have the most amount of traction. Otherwise, you can balance that if you have a way to shift the drive percentage. The J35Y4 and later had direct injection. Okay. You got to check it again. Yeah, I'm not that. We would only use the earlier stuff. Never let my tank get below a quarter tank. That's how you burn pumps up, especially in Civics. Yeah. And I'm guilty of that. I let mine run out in my truck. Not run out, but, it's got 3 more miles in it. How much power do you think I could get out of a boosted 670 Harbor Freight Predator motor? I don't know how strong they are. And honestly, I don't know, what are they factory rated at? And are you doing it with a small turbo or something? Like, what's the factory rating on a Predator motor? I guess I could look that up. And 13 horsepower, 420. I think you're gonna have a hard or a 670. So Predator. So it's a 22 horsepower. I don't know how the ceiling is. I don't know how the, obviously put ring gap in it. I'm curious how you think you're going to get all the fuel to it and stuff. Is it going to be a draw through turbo? Are you going to fuel inject it? What are you going to do? Is there a reason outside of cost to use an earlier J35 motor? I think it's because there are more of them available, and cost. There are forums for the Predator motor. They might know. Yeah, guys get together and talk about that stuff. $350. Matt, what's up? Matt, I got to talk to. I went and had dinner with Bernie when I flew into Atlanta to go snake hunting. Bernie came out and had dinner with us. Cars and Cameras has a build series on it. 670 turbo, that is. Link G4X Fury on a 670 Predator with Bosch 980 injectors. What about air-cooled VW Porsche motors? What about them? Richard, I received my rods from Molnar. Just waiting on EJ20 pistons. Calvin recommended. Just waiting on the machine shop to let me know if the crankshaft is good. So, Dark Blades, what motor is that? Redbeard's Garage did a supercharged one, 75 horsepower. So did they do porting on the head, and is somebody doing cams for them or something? What's the deal? Air to water is probably better for road cars. Asubi. I know what the EJ20 is, but I'm wondering if you're putting an EJ20 piston in something else. So, we're down to 19% on the yes. Oh, okay, the Atlas Vortec 3500. Okay. So the 5-cylinder, cool. And wow, and you stepped up and did some Molnar rods for it. I'm sure that wasn't cheap. So Dark Blaze, how much different is the compression height exactly the same on the EJ20 piston as it is on the Atlas motor? Richard, what's the engine build you are most proud of? I think probably maybe the land speed Honda one, just because it ran and ran and ran and ran and ran. I mean, we hot lapped the thing, and lasted a really, really long time. If you run something like Killer Chiller, Interchiller, do you think pump gas can run on much higher boost, more timing, assuming you can make inlet air temp somewhere around 30? So you think that you can make the inlet air temp 32 degrees? It sounds like the only J series motor to build off of is that J series is with the introduction to oil jets for the pistons. Does manufacturer spec boosted for ring gap over the rule? The standard 28-ish standard Wiseco pistons came with a multiplier for boost applications, which was not even 20 after the formula. That's what I use. 6.5 thousandths per inch of bore is what I use. No, I have to get the top of the pistons machined a bit. Calvin did as well for his. To get it down to where it's zero deck, you have to machine some of the crown off. It'd be tough to get the inlet air temp down to 32 degrees. I agree. Unless you're doing compressed air supercharging, and then you can get it down below that. But to answer your question, if you could get charge temp down to 32 degrees or even lower, you can run all the boost and all the timing and on very little octane. Because the guys with the compressor supercharger, but they had charge temperatures that were below zero. They had they would run full NA timing, and they would more than double the power output of their NA motor at like 7 or 8 pounds. Would you do American Ninja Warrior again? I don't think I would. The problem with it is I think it's cool, and it was a lot of fun to train and do that stuff. The problem for me is it's just hard to do what 20-year-olds can do. But more the amount of time, the time and dedication that it takes to do something like that. And then now to go, and unless you have a clever, intro video that you get chosen for, if you have to go do it as a walk on, I don't know what the weight is now. Back when I did it, it was like 7 or 8 days, and I can't take 7 or 8 days off to go do that, unfortunately, anymore. Bicycle calls for 8 thousandths per inch of bore for 30 pounds of boost. That seems like a lot. Killer Chiller uses the car's AC. No, I know what it is. I've seen real low inlet temps on LSAs with Killer Chiller. There are some videos on YouTube. You attempted Ninja Warrior? Yeah, I did it. I did it 2 years. Yeah. Do you know why there aren't any multi-stage compressors for turbos? Well, they do compound turbos. Is that what you're talking about? On turbofan engines, they do to increase efficiency and reduce entropy. Do you ever use an AC evaporator on the intercooler? I haven't, but that is done. I mean, it's done. The factory Dodge does that. So, Burns, you tried one of the Killer Chiller deals? And you got 70 with a 98 ambient. It's still below ambient. That's good. And at 30 pounds, that's pretty low, but it's not 32 low. And it's not negative low. Multi-stage on a common shaft. I haven't seen that on a turbo. AMR 500 on a Predator 670 with ported heads and studs. The AMR 500 is certainly enough to support that power level fairly easily. Can't believe I didn't think of compound turbos. They also intercool between stages to keep pressure but reduce temperature. Yeah. There's a wash with a good air to water setup I was using, more convenient, except all the plumbing. It's hard to get. Like, if you can use ice water on air to water, it's pretty hard to beat. Use isopropyl alcohol and dry ice. Yep. I've never tried the isopropyl alcohol and dry ice. Seems a little volatile. Calvin used forged EJ20 pistons because of pin height of 905. Just like the factory 4200. Okay. And is the compression height different on the 5-cylinder? I mean, I don't know why they would do that, but Dan, I didn't test it. I haven't tested the chili bomb yet. I've been wanting something small to test it on. The chili bomb would be perfect though for the whole AMR 500. Actually, it's might, if anything, be oversized for the AMR. Not 3,500. 3,700 is okay. Is the 3,500 the 4-cylinder? Oh, that's right. They changed the displacement, right? Get the big block 5-cylinder. Yeah, the 3,700 is the what's the displacement of the 4-cylinder? $2.3. Okay. 2,800. That's kind of what I'm thinking. Vortec 2,800. Full race. 28 and 2,900. Okay. So that's right. They made the big block and small block versions of the 4-cylinder as well. It's all good. So I'm going to close out our poll at 81% saying no, they have not run factory air to water intercoolers. So we have 1 more minute. Time to go. First, watch them go. Dark Blaze, on your rods, did you do a factory length rod with that compression height, or is it different than factory length? Check and torque. I started working for Dodge again recently. If you ever need access to any Chrysler specs or dealer information diagrams, let me know. Oh, that's very cool. I don't know why I didn't see that comment before. And on that note, it is time to go. I'm still working on videos, which I'll have up tomorrow. but I promise I'm back. And I'll try to get my my snake videos up as well, which will be cool. Or video, probably just be one, but it'll be cool. I've got I think I've got all the stuff sent to me now, so that I can kind of package it up. And we didn't even video everything. I just get so excited about going finding stuff and going to catch it. I'm like, oh yeah, we probably should have filmed that. That'd have been fun. I know I missed one. I did miss the garter snake with the frog in his mouth, trying to crawl away with the frog because he didn't want to have anything to do with us. He just didn't want us taking the frog out of his mouth because he had got it fair and square. The frog had already been run over, so it was an easy catch for him. He didn't have to fight it at all. But it's good stuff. On that note, I will see you guys all tomorrow. Bam, 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 bam.